strategic move that Eddie is making for AJ? Why are you not thinking, let's get him set up for
kind of animal? If that was years and years and years ago. Like, Clarissa is a way different fighter from when she was back in the
Thanks to those joining me live and to those that will be joining me on our
defenses that she's had to have recently. You know, she's pulled people.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable about tribalism. I don't think tribalism is necessarily bad. I just don't think it has to be.
I don't know what he think he sees or what he think he know. But he going to the hospital, bro. Like, bro, you not winning that fight.
You guys mentioned, I think, D-Style, you mentioned him versus Regis Program. I'd love, that sounds like a...
Old, I don't need you, you know, and PBC and others, in my opinion, it's like, oh, this is my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out, it's tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then...
That would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows.
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now. And he ain't going to fight. I bet you anything. He's not going to fight somebody as good as John Wayne.
All right, we're back with another edition of the Roundtable with another great panel as always. We have, for the first time, joining us from across the pond, Chris Andre Boxing is in the house, and it's a pleasure to have him. My partner in crime, D-Style Boxing, and my other man from across the pond, Danny Glover, and as always, the mighty Ring IQ is gracing us with his presence. Let's jump right in. Tim Tszyu had a pretty impressive performance, in my opinion, over Brian Mendoza this past weekend. And he's got a lot of momentum. Right now, you can argue, some people think he's the man at 154. We don't know if Charlo's coming back down. So we have to kind of wonder and question, you know, what's next for Tim Tszyu? What would you like to see him fight next? What do you think, Chris? What do you think they're going to go next for Tim Tszyu?
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to still consider Charlo to be the man at 154. I think you have to earn your stripes. I know there are people out there that might think, listen, maybe he's not quite what he was in terms of his intensity, but let's not forget he did jump up 2 weight categories to fight a modern-day great in Canelo Alvarez. Tim Tszyu is not Canelo Alvarez. He looks brilliant. He's a great prospect, but it's a different proposition. Regardless of where they go, I actually think that he still needs a little bit of work, but I do have to give him major props because when he got dropped by Garcia and he got up and he went on to win the fight, you saw that he could have rested on his laurels. He could have said, you know what, I'm in line here for a shot. I'm going to sit back. I've seen, you know, other fighters take risks. Look at Joe Joyce, for instance. He took risks, fell short. People wrote him off. He didn't do that. He's gotten in the ring with the likes of Tony Harrison, Ocampo, Brian Mendoza. These are serious guys. And he's continuing to improve on his craft. But I do think he gets touched a little bit too much. And I still think there's areas there that he needs to work on. And that's fine. A lot of top fighters do. And I still think he's improving. But before I crown him as a king, I still need to see him in there with the main man of the division. If he doesn't go down that route and he ends up fighting the likes of, I don't know, Fundora, Lubin, or whoever else, Madrimov would be an interesting fight. Now, whether these networks can, you know, have these cross-promotional agreements, that's another story. But whichever way you look, I think Tim Tszyu now in a position where he's must-watch TV. He's so entertaining to watch, and he is a brilliant fighter that we're all going to be excited about whoever he steps in the ring with next.
Let me put you on the spot. Who wins, Jermell, Charlo, or Tim Tszyu?
At this present moment in time, if I was really pushed, I'd probably go Jermell Charlo right now.
Okay, wow.
I just think so. Tim, if you watch the fight, for instance, against Mendoza, you'll see that Brian was bringing some lovely lateral movement early in the fight. And one of the areas that Tim Tszyu struggles with a little bit for me, he comes in with that high guard. He's quite methodical. He's not too dynamic. And he seeks to parry shots. And he's got quite an underrated defense at points. But one of the areas that I think he has an issue with is that he's often using that right hand to try and parry down shots. And often it's a little bit over-exaggerated. And what you could see is with the second phase of attack, Mendoza was finding a home. So if he was to jab to the body and come upstairs with a left hook, he would find a home for it. If he was going to throw a right hook around the elbow to land to the ribs and then try and just come off the line slightly to throw a left shovel hook into the solar plexus or the pit of the stomach, again, he'd find a home for it. And I just think that with someone like Jermell Charlo, who doesn't have the lateral movement, I don't think, of Mendoza, but is still quite dynamic, when he changes levels and comes low, he can shoot off of that. So I think he would be getting Tim Tszyu to turn and potentially walk him onto shots. Now, we know Tim Tszyu finishes very well, and he would snowball as a fighter. But is he going to be able to absorb the sort of punishment early, perhaps, and be well enough, healthy enough to come on strong late on. Let's not forget, he's a guy that's got quite low volume. So he relies somewhat on his power. He has to bust you up. So if he's getting outworked early on by a guy who is a puncher at light middleweight, I'm not so sure he's going to come through that. But listen, it's a great fight. I can see a way that Tszyu wins as well. And that's why these are the fights we need to see.
All right, Tszyu. Chris makes a great point. We talk about sometimes that high guard hand positioning. It's tough when you're transitioning from offense to defense with that high guard. It's harder to catch when we have like the kind of a modified hand position you can catch and shoot. With that high guard, you kind of have to reset. What do you think against the potential matchup between Charlo and Tszyu? Do you think that ever happens, or do you think they're talking about Charlo having to fight a mandatory, right? So
well, look,
I think this plays out.
Look, I went back to watch the fight at least 2 more times after the live, and of course it's in hindsight, and I know the result now, but I think the performance looked more impressive the more I watched it. I think he did a great job staying in mid-range the whole time. He suffocated Mendoza. Mendoza never rested one moment in that fight. Never. He was always in front of him at all times. And I think what happens is what Tony Harrison described as he just has you thinking and you just don't know when he's going to throw. So even when he's not throwing, even when he's not doing anything, you're wondering when is he going to throw it because he's not telegraphed at all, not his offense. There's a lot of criticisms of him as far as his defense. Look, he's not Floyd Mayweather in there, nor is he Pernell Whitaker. However, I think his defense is good. I'm not going to say it's amazing or nothing, but it's solid. But I think what Tim does in the ring, I think he does it very well. I like to see him use the jab more. I think he could utilize the jab. When he used it in the middle rounds, he was using it more of a weapon than he was to set anything up. And I would like him to use it more as a setup as well. But I was impressed with the performance personally. I think Mendoza is a very dangerous puncher. And whoever says Tim has a poor defense, right? I would just invite anybody to just point to me, how often does he get hit with 2 consecutive punches at a time? How often do you see his head get snapped back in devastating fashion? I do a lot of fighters, quite frankly. But not to say he can improve, and I think he is improving every fight, I believe. As far as Jermell, I favored him against Jermell when the fight was first done. I didn't see what a lot of people saw in the Gaethje fight. What happened in the knockdown was a mistake. It wasn't a pattern, right? And what I saw, when someone gets knocked down for the first time, okay, how do they react? How do they act in that moment? He looked very poised, relaxed, and went on to dominate the rest of the fight and outbox a really good Gaethje. I'm not saying Gaethje is a top of the line, but he did a good job controlling that fight afterwards. But a lot of fighters got knocked down early in their career, whether you want to say a young Cassius Clay, a.k.a. Muhammad Ali. If you want to, I'm not comparing him to Ali, by the way, before I get crucified. I'm just saying even the greats. Andre Ward got hurt by Boone and dropped, and he was really hurt in that fight.
And Kovalev.
Kovalev. Yeah, there you go. Boone did the same to him. And I think the Stevenson, too, if I'm not mistaken, actually. But it happens, right? But the reason I favor him against Charlo is this. Charlo's really good when he goes back to the drawing board and he kind of see, okay, how he looked against his opponent and then make adjustments. I feel he lost the Castano fight. He lost to Harrison the first time, and he was losing to Harrison before he knocked Harrison out on my scorecard. That's somebody that could be outboxed. He has very low output, and I think Tim Tszyu, while his output's not high, he suffocates you. He doesn't let you breathe throughout the fight. He would be in front of Charlo the whole time, and Charlo's, I think his brain's gonna overload, just like it did with Harrison, right? And I think he's gonna overthink. He's gonna get mentally fatigued. He's gonna get physically fatigued. The coal's gonna run out. The fuel's gonna run out by the middle rounds. And I think Tim takes over in the middle of the fight. Now, I'm not delusional. Of course, Jermell can land a big shot and knock anybody out in that division, including Tim Tszyu. I do think it's a great fight. I just favor Tim Tszyu in that fight if it were to happen. I was 55-45 a year ago. Now I'm like 70-30 that Tim Tszyu wins that fight. That's how confident I am. But I'm not going to count Jermell out. Another factor to consider. It's the next factor. He went up in weight. He put on some weight to fight Canelo, and then to have to come back down and drop weight. How is that going to affect Jermell? It could not affect him. It could negatively affect him. We just don't know, right? So, I would like to see Jermell, if he's going to go back down to 154, fight somebody else, and then see how you look. You know what I mean? I don't know if fighting Tim Tszyu right away is the right idea, but if they want to do it, they want to do it. So it is what it is. So one thing I could confirm, just for everybody out there, is a lot of speculation of what's going to happen with Tim Tszyu. While I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know the future, I could tell you the intentions directly from the team. The intention is to come back to the United States in February or March. They want to fight in America. That's what Tim Tszyu wants specifically. Whether we think it makes sense or not, it's kind of irrelevant. That's their plan. That's what they want to do. In terms of Showtime no longer being around, contrary to what people are saying, Tim is not a PBC fighter. He's a no-limit fighter. His fights in the U.S. were contracted with PBC, which, of course, had the contract with Showtime. Now, whether or not they still have rights to a Tim Tszyu fight to be televised in the U.S., I don't know. But Tim is free to go to any platform he wants, quite frankly. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. From Tim Tszyu himself, you can see it on my channel community page, cheap plug. They're going to look at every option, and they're going to go wherever it makes the most sense for them. So there you go.
Danny, if I was to guess, I think Lubin's going to be the next guy. I don't think Charlo's going to come down to 154, and I don't think he's going to fight that mandatory. What do you think's next for Tszyu?
Yeah, I think probably Lubin, because I'm not sure how Charlo's going to drop 14 pounds now. That's a stone for those in the UK. And fight straight away. We've seen fighters drop 7 pounds, 6 pounds, 4 pounds, and they've not been the same fighter. When you go up and you win a title, or you fight and you come back down, you're not the same fighter. You're punch resistant. So losing a whole stone, where Charlo, he was like he had a 6-pack still, so it's muscle he's going to end up having to lose. I don't think that would be a sensible option for him to come down to 154. I thought that Charlo, he's probably going to go to 160 now and probably just campaign there and let his brother do the whole 168 thing. But if he was before the Harrison fight, I would favor Charlo. After the Harrison fight, and the way I saw the way Tim Tszyu dealt with Harrison, and the thing is, what I liked about how Tszyu dealt with Harrison was how he finished Harrison the exact same way that Jermell Charlo did, with the series of uppercuts against the ropes. So he saw the blueprint and actually executed it. He did it in the Mendoza fight. Obviously, he didn't get to drop him or get him out of there, but it's a very good array of an attack that Tszyu has in his arsenal. And kind of, I wouldn't say that the Tony Harrison fight against Charlo was any indication of why I think that Tszyu would pose Charlo problems, because, you know, Harrison's a boxer, mover. He's a good slick guy. Whereas Tim Tszyu is in your face. So he's more of a Brian Castano type style guy. Yes, Castano's more relentless and just proper wails away, but he was able to rock Charlo in the first fight. So I think Tim Tszyu hits probably harder than him. So if what's his name, Castano can hurt Charlo, yes, we know that Charlo can punch, but so can Tszyu. And we saw you could hear the echo and the sound of those punches coming up on Mendoza. And I don't think there's any other 154-pound guy who would have been able to take those punches that Mendoza took. So I just feel that now, after the Tony Harrison fight, I thought, yeah, I kind of fancy Tim Tszyu to win this. And this was when Charlo was still 154, but now he's gone up 14 pounds. Him coming down, he's just putting himself at a major disadvantage. But regarding Tszyu's performance, I thought it was a very good performance. He showed a lot of good array of attacks, punches in bunches. And yes, he's lost the Showtime deal, but as D-Style said, he's a fan-friendly fight, must-watch TV, as Chris Andre said. So he'll get picked up by a network very easily. I think he's with that Tasman type.
He's with
management.
No Limit. He's with No Limit.
Oh, no.
Tasman is a different one. Tasman is Jai, Justice Honey. No Limit is actually their competitor in Australia.
Okay, so yeah, with no limit, but I feel that he'll get picked up very easily because he's a man you can easily sell. Australian boxing is growing now and booming, so he's not going to struggle to find a new home at the end of the day. And I think he reminds me of Corey Spinks, where yes, his surname did help him get in the door, but his actual skills and talent is going to keep him in the door because he can fight. Just like Corey Spinks to fight. A lot of fighters, they're riding off their dad's coattail. You're not really sure, can they really fight? Can they really do it? But he's a world champion. I think that he'll do his father's name proud. And I think that it probably will be Lubin next because Charlo ain't going to drop 14 pounds in time. And I don't think he's going to even go to 154. So, yeah.
Really quick, Tim Tszyu is everything Mexican fans wanted Chavez Jr. to be. Okay, like that's it.
Bro, he's everything they wanted Chris Eubank Jr. to be. That kid is something, man. That is shit.
Yeah. One thing we know about Tim Tszyu, Ring, he's going to stay active. He ain't going to wait around for anybody. So I think he's going to try to get in there as fast as possible. Is the Lubin fight probably the most plausible, do you think?
It depends on how long it takes the PBC to find a broadcast partner, because Lubin is a PBC fighter. And if the idea is to fight in America, then you need an American broadcaster, you need American backing, American money. So it all depends whether or not it's going to be Lubin. I could see that because he won a secondary version of a WBC title, but it does depend on how long it takes Al to get into bed with somebody. I was watching the Boxing Voice earlier, and it looks like the Amazon deal, which is everything I heard. It's everything I already heard, that the Amazon deal is not akin to the Showtime deal. It's not us giving you 100 million or 90 million to do shows throughout the year. It's just for the big pay-per-views. So for those guys like Lubin, you need an annual budget. You need an arrangement like the one you had with Showtime and Fox. And he doesn't want to go to DAZN. That's what the headline was, even though he should. DAZN would give them a budget to do shows throughout the year. So to make that part of it, that long story short, I don't know if it's Lubin because it depends on how long it takes Al to find a broadcast partner. If Tszyu has to go to Top Rank, and Top Rank has shown the ability to air Australian fights, George Cambosos, Devin Haney, 2 times, Marble Stadium, they showed they can do that. I could see him going there. I could also see him going to Matchroom because they have a good number of Australian fighters. Ebony Bridges, Justice Hooney, Dempsey McKean, Jayo Pataya, Stevie Sparks. They got a lot of Australian guys over there. So yeah,
Liam
Paro, another good one. That unbeaten guy, 140. Even though I think he's going to move to 147. But they got a lot that he has a lot to offer, and people have a lot to offer him. Whereas PBC right now is very unstable, very immaterial. Like, yeah, if you're at 154, it makes sense, but everything is topsy-turvy with you guys right now. So you got to get situated first before we plan around anything that you got,
Yeah.
Now, whether or not I think he would beat Jermell, I absolutely think he would beat Jermell. You don't go up to 68 and come back down to 54, whether it's 1 fight from now or 2 fights from now. Jermell gets beat. You're in your you're approaching your mid-30s. You were at junior middleweight for a very, very long time. Making that weight now, bear in mind, you haven't made it in over a year. If you do end up making it, it will have been 2 years since you made that weight. Can you handle pressure at that weight under those circumstances? Because that's what we're talking about. You needed 2 fights for Tony Harrison, 2 fights for Brian Castano, okay? I think Tim knocks him out. Simple. 70-30, Tim Tszyu, knockout. And his confidence also, Jermell Charlo's confidence, he can't be feeling good right now. Everybody's clowning him. Psychologically, yeah, that has a factor. An effect on how you fight. How do you feel? How do you feel about yourself? Based on how people talking about you. You can't throw with the same conviction you did because people are clowning you. So I would heavily favor Tszyu, but I don't actually believe that fight is ever going to happen. I don't actually think Jermell is coming back to 154. I don't.
Can I say something real quick?
Right ahead.
I don't look. I just want to put this out. I have a lot of respect for all these prize fighters, and I'm not here to call anybody cowards or nothing like that. And that's not what I'm alluding to. Just want to make that clear, right? But Jermell does have a different energy when the name Tim Tszyu comes up. Like he acts a little different. Like there's something about Tim Tszyu that it may just be that he just, you know, sometimes you look at somebody, you don't like them. It could just be that. It could be anything, right? But he just acts different. And he just lies like about the whole situation. I mean, the guy was basically, he tried to blame Tim Tszyu for like why the fight was, you know, scheduled out so long. No, like you told them that we'll fight in 6 months or 7 months, I think it was. It was some crazy, and Tim Tszyu went ahead while he was waiting, right? He said, well, might as well have the hand surgery. He would have fought you just like that if you scheduled
with
it.
the hand busted, yeah. With the hand busted, he would have fought.
And if somebody doesn't believe me, the dude got bit in the arm by a fucking rabid dog and still went out there and knocked out.
So listen, you could tell him, bro, that being real, I think when they sent Tim to Minneapolis, they was trying to set him up. They didn't think he was going to beat Gausha. And when he beat Gausha, that threw a wrench in their plans. Like Jermell never had, to me, Jermell never had any intention of fighting Tim. And I'm not going to say scared. No. I'm just saying that was not the plan. What they wanted likely was for Terrell Gausha to beat Tim. They figure, oh, he's just some guy from Australia. He's just some guy. They didn't think he was going to win that fight. So when he wins that fight, shit, now we got to keep dealing with this guy, man. And he doesn't want to go away. He wants his shot. So, you know, I honestly, I don't think they're ever going to fight. But if they do, I got Tim. That's an easy bet. Tim will knock him out. So,
all I'm saying is that there's a different energy. He acts different. He gets mad. He gets angry. And he doesn't seem like you made this guy wait 7 months and then you got injured and he still waited for you. He said, I'll still wait for you, champ. Like I'm right here. Like, let me take care of Harrison for you for now. Let me, and you still, and I know this for a fact, you kept his team in the dark and made it seem they literally told their team, oh, we're just waiting on the Jermell Canelo fight to get announced. And once we announce that, you know, like we don't want that's going to dominate the headlines. Once that gets announced and it's set the week after or something, we'll go ahead and we'll announce Jermell versus, you know, Tim Tszyu. They had him waiting the whole time. When like you come out, and I don't know how true this is, but Jermell comes out and says, "Oh, it was me, Canelo, the whole time. I knew since."
No, he did say that. He did. I seen the video. He said that.
I know he said it. I just don't know if it's true. Like I don't know if that's, you know what I mean?
Oh, I believe it is. I mean, I believe. Like I said, I don't think it was ever the plan. I don't look. I said it when he said he was injured. That man is not injured. You just trying to find a way to get out of the fight. That man is not injured. They fake injuries over there. Why you think? Remember what Tony Harrison told him? Y'all fake an injury. Remember what he told Mel? I'll fake an injury out here. He said that. And I'm like, that's what y'all be doing. Y'all be faking injuries and shit. Jermell wasn't injured, man. He don't want to fight that dude.
I don't know about,
maybe he's seen what his father did to Zab Judah. He don't want to end up like Zab.
Yeah, like now I don't know if it was like I don't know about January, right? I don't know. Maybe it was bruised. I don't know about that, but I do know this. The hand was just fine mid-year, and when Canelo made the call, he probably answered with that same fucking hand, and all of a sudden the hand was fine. That I do know.
There wasn't nothing wrong with that hand, bro. He just wasn't trying to fight that dude.
The thing is, though, if we're being honest, let's say he was fine and he did get that Canelo call. Can you really blame him for taking that Canelo bag?
Oh, not at all.
No, I don't blame him for taking the Canelo fight, but I will say that I never had faith that they were going to fight. Never. Like any video I did about that fight, they're not fighting. Mel don't want that fight. I don't know. Just like D-Style said, I ain't going to call nobody no coward. I'm going to just say, yo, I never thought y'all was going to fight. It's something about this guy, man. You don't like this guy. Like something about this guy just unsettles you. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Since you brought up Showtime, Ring, one of your favorite topics, let's jump right in, right? So obviously we know they're leaving boxing, right? And questions about PBC. But I'm going to pose another question. Is this good or bad for boxing? This just a sign of the times that, you know, everything's going digital right now, and a lot of these traditional cable networks are kind of going by the wayside in terms of sports, right? We saw HBO Showtime is now next. You made a good point about Amazon, and I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, I got a feeling that PBC is not going to just be with one network. I think they're going to kind of have, relationships with a bunch of networks. Go ahead. I'll let you jump in. What do you think?
Well, no, remember the arrangement that they had in 2018. They had an arrangement where they had 2 broadcasters.
Yeah.
They had 2 annual budgets. And some might have looked at that as like, oh, that's great. You got 2 annual budgets, but you're actually spreading your stable thin.
Yeah.
So all you're going to end up doing is put up weak numbers in 2 stables as opposed to putting up strong numbers at 1. Now, every rumor that I've been told by everybody I call a source, the Amazon deal is a distribution deal for pay-per-views. Nothing about an annual budget. So it's not the arrangement they had at Showtime. That's why, you go to Amazon and do Canelo fights over there, but that's what they want, big fights. They don't want the bullshit. They want big fights. You still have a bunch of other fighters you have to accommodate. And to me, ideally, go to ESPN if they want you. I haven't heard no rumor of ESPN wanting them, by the way. But ideally, go to a ESPN or go to a DAZN, wherever the boxing fans already are. That's where you should go, because your problem was you were on a story-based network where the majority of subscribers are not there for sports or boxing. Most of them people was not there for that. So you getting overlooked. You need to go where the sports are. So go to me. I would love for them to go to DAZN and add that to that catalog. But I just watched the Boxing Voice, and they're saying that the story is Al don't want to go to DAZN. Well, hey, bro, we'll see where you go. You're just gonna fuck up another budget on another network, because Matchroom has only been on 2 broadcasters in the last 6 years. Sky, then DAZN. Top Rank has only been on 2 broadcasters in the last 6 years. HBO and ESPN. Y'all motherfuckers done been on Bounce, Spike, ITV, Fox, FS1, Showtime. It's a reason for that. Y'all I don't want to turn it into a thing, right? Because I could carry on, but I'm like, yo, dog, those guys are bad for boxing. A lot of people don't like to say it, but them guys is bad for boxing, because Showtime has been in this industry for 37 years. How do you think you're making boxing look, the broadcasters, that you bouncing around from network to network, blowing budget to budget, and you can't make it work? That's not good, fam. Then they're going to be like, yeah, we don't really want that kind of content. Thank you very much. And it'll kill boxing. It could kill boxing in America.
Yeah. So D-Style, did someone want to say something before I went to D-Style? Go ahead, Chris.
Could I quickly just say, with regards to the PBC and going to DAZN, the fact that you've got Golden Boy and Matchroom there, you see, a lot of people seem to focus on the idea that it's promoters that don't want to work together, and that might very well be the case. But often it's the networks behind them that are the problem. They're the ones that want the fighters to appear on their own network. When
Exclusivity.
Right.
Exclusivity. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you've got a bunch of promoters with one network, you're going to start to see cross-promotional fights, and that is good for boxing. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to shill for DAZN or anything like that. I'm just saying, as a boxing fan, particularly here in the UK, where we don't get PBC content on Showtime, we don't get it over here. You got people staying up till 5 a.m. trying to find the stream, or you have people waiting until they put it up on YouTube. As a boxing fan, particularly on this side of the pond, I would love it if they were on a DAZN, for instance, where we could start to see cross promotions. And Lobster 11 in the comments, I've just seen, he's been talking about how there are certain networks, people like ESPN, who are tightening the belt somewhat. There are a lot of cutbacks going on here and there. So when you're talking about DAZN focusing on growth still and trying to make headway into boxing, from an outside position looking in, that seems to be like the move that makes most sense to me. But obviously, I'm not privy to the.
And that's why, Chris, don't hold your breath, because Heyman don't make moves. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't stand the dude. He don't make moves that make sense for sports. He wants to be away and isolated from the rest of the world of boxing. Moreover, I don't think he wants a broadcast partner that knows boxing. When they went to Fox, what the fuck does Bill Wanger know about boxing, bro? He don't know shit about boxing. It's easier for you to get over on a guy like that because he don't know shit about boxing. So they're going to trust your judgment as the boxing guy. At DAZN, just like Chris said, cross-promotional fights all day, fights that are great for the market. He don't want that. He just wants his guys to be tucked away, in a corner of the world, not getting beat up by other people's guys. That's what he wants. Because whenever they let him fight somebody, what happens? His guys get beat up.
Yeah. D-Style, let me just ask you this, because I even suspect that there may even be some type of deal in place with various broadcasters, maybe right now. I'm not even sure. It does seem though like the zone would be the best move, because then you wouldn't have that other side of the street argument. It would be easier to make fights. And I'll even ask you another question before I let you jump in. Do you think some of these PBC fighters may be saying right now, I'm going to jump ship. I want to go somewhere else. I want to go to Top Rank. I want to go to DAZN myself. I want to go to Matchroom. I want to go to Top Rank.
I think we'll have that happen, especially if it's true that Amazon is only going to focus on the really big events. Well, how many of those big events do we really have? I mean, this year we had 3. Like,
I mean, if you're talking about in the future, I would say 4.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is this: you got the 2 Canelo, maybe 2 Tank fights. What else you got over there? I mean, so all I gotta say is this: I think some of those fighters will.
They're gonna leave. Right?
I don't see Tim Tszyu saying, "Oh yeah, I'll be on the undercard of Canelo Alvarez." You know, I think, they're gonna be like, "Yo, no limit. Let's find something else here." You know what I mean? So I think that's what happened. Now, what I'm gonna do is this. All right, Glenn Jennings is here. Okay, now in spirit, he's not literally here, right? but I have an official statement from him that will touch on a lot of that. I just want to go ahead and read over it, right? And it'll say a lot. All right, so I'm just gonna read over it. Nice to hear from you, mate. Great result against Mendoza, composed and controlled, made it a solid win for Tim. As far as Showtime, like most, I am disappointed and saddened that this is the end of an era, and I spent a lot of time involved in it. Garcia was a Showtime contracted fighter under CEO Jay Larkin, rest in peace. And so to have the opportunity to allow Tim to perform on Showtime with PBC was a great privilege. I think they will leave a large hole in boxing broadcast, but in such a dynamic field as this, every time one goes, another is ready to step in. PBC still have a strong roster. With that comes programming clout. So I'm sure Al Heyman already has a plan B. To transition to another broadcaster. Fighters will go through the best platforms, pay packets, and fan bases are to support their fights. I am hopeful Showtime's withdrawal will ignite some restructuring in our industry that allows the best to fight the best and not remain protected and literally destroying the weight class system that we have grown up on. The days of fighters having to jump 2 to 3 weight classes for a challenge need to be put back in a box, and the only way to do that is to have a robust and firm enforcement of sanctioning bodies, honoring the ranking system that allows fighters to work hard and regularly reach the number 1 or mandatory, and champions forced to fight them or immediately vacate. It only takes 1 or 2 to enforce, and they will be the preferred sanctioning body and attract the great talents. On the other hand, allow champs to set out for an extended period like today without consequence will see fighters leaving those sanctioning bodies in total frustration at being disregarded or forbidden their opportunity to fight for a world title due to inactivity of the champion. It really is a simple plan. Enforce your constitutions or make amendments to follow the rankings and give the opportunity for newly elevated fighters that have busted their ass to get the number 1 or mandatory to shine. You never know. You may uncover a new Saul Canelo Alvarez rather than talking about a failed Jermell Charlo. After all, boxing is a fighting game. Since when did it become a waiting game? Just my thoughts, mate. Hope you guys are doing well. I will keep Tim busy. We will explore each and every option that allows us to get back in the ring in the USA, February or March 2024. Until then, tell all them American boys we are coming and we will actually fight. We're happy to see who puts their hands up. There you go.
Yeah. So I think, Chris, bring it back to you. A lot of resentment towards PBC is because of the log jamming of divisions, right? The inactivity of the fighters. And it's just been bad. It's been just a bad look in general. I think there's a lot of criticism towards PBC. We can criticize the sport all we want, but there's a pattern of behavior. We just can't ignore it. A lot of fighters over there, they're not fighting mandatories. They're not being active. And I don't know, will any of that change now that, you know, PBC lost this deal with Showtime? Will some of these fighters, like I said, fraction to some of these other promotional companies? I have a feeling like a guy like Boots Ennis, he may go to Eddie Hearn, right? He may sign him.
Goes to Top Rank. I heard that the people at Top Rank want him. Somebody told me that.
Okay.
Somebody in the know.
Even better. Do you, like, again, just to piggyback off what I said earlier, and it kind of extrapolate a little bit more, how do you see this whole thing playing out?
Well, I mean, call me an eternal optimist, but I'm hoping that if they sign with one of the major networks, that already have a boxing stable among them, then maybe you'll start to see cross-promotional fights. I know there's talk of NBC now getting involved as well with Boxer and stuff like that. In some ways, I'm wondering whether it's good to have this proliferation of networks. I actually think it's been a major problem. And that's not to say that I want certain networks to fall by the wayside or anything like that, but I think the biggest problem we have is this reluctance to have cross-promotional fights. We've also got an issue with the governing bodies, whereby, as the statement that D-Star read out, we're not seeing them really enforcing certain situations. We see a lot of B status level guys that are not willing to take risks and fight other B status guys. I mean, to move away from PBC for a second, right? And I understand completely the criticism being thrown at the PBC's feet. There's a lot of buildup of traffic and so on and so forth. But if we're going to look at Top Rank, for instance, and some of the heavyweights they've got at their disposal, Arslanbek Makhmudov, Frank Sanchez, these guys are very, very talented heavyweights. They will be looking at the top of the division and they'll be saying to themselves, I fancy my chance of causing an upset against one or two of these guys. But when you look at the CVs and who they're fighting, it's not acceptable. As a boxing fan, there's no real hype behind their fights because you almost know the outcome of the fight before it's going to happen. And this sort of thing has to change. You have to start seeing a situation where someone needs to start taking a few more risks to put themselves into position whereby if the governing bodies are not calling for an opportunity for a specific fighter, he almost batters the door down and forces it himself. So I do think, yeah, sure, the PBC, there's been an issue with a number of promotional companies. Let's not forget Oscar De La Hoya had some issue with promotional companies in the UK, Eddie Hearn and Queensbury. So it's not just the PBC. We do seem to be seeing a lot of issues with networks in general. And so for me, I think the fans need to stop shilling for any given promoter or fan. You get a lot of fans who will be supportive of one specific fighter. They'll always make an excuse for him. As boxing fans, do you not want to see the best fight the best? We need to stop this. We need to start saying that the idea that you have to cross the street, that PBC phrase, is not acceptable. As boxing fans, we've got to stop this idea that, politics is going to get in the way of a fight. No, a guy like Tim Tszyu who's taking risks, has earned a shot, put him in there.
Chris, I'll say this. You mentioned Arslanbek Makhmudov and Frankie Sanchez, right? As it pertains to the PBC. Well, what if I told you the reason those guys are frozen and fighting these pointless fights is because the WBC insists on keeping Wilder at number one, who in the last 2 years has only boxed for one round. It all goes back to things that the PBC are causing. The middleweight division, for example, we could be looking at Carlos Adames versus Yanni Beck unification match for the full WBC, WBO. What's the problem? Jermell's been out for almost 3 years, bro. And his next fight isn't even going to be a middleweight title fight. It's going to be at 164.
But that's what I mean about pressure being needed to be put on the governing bodies as well as the promotional companies. Listen, I sympathize with Jermell if he's got some personal issues, but then make him champion emeritus. Put him in a position where if he's going to return, he'll get a shot at the mandatory. How can you hold on to the belt and not fight for so long? It is destroying the sport. But that's what I mean. The promotional companies are ultimately going to do what's best for their client. In some way, the governing bodies are the ones that need to be doing what's best for the sport. And as fans, we are invested in that. And we need to be putting pressure on them. Take the WBC, for instance, again, you mentioned Deontay Wilder, their ring IQ. But Tyson Fury also, for a long period of time, 18 months now, hasn't fought someone that we would have wanted to have seen him fight. I thought the Dillian White fight was a legitimate, he was Ring Magazine number 4. Heavyweight, that's a good fight. A lot of people run that down. That was a quality fight on paper. But since then, we've not seen him fight who people have wanted to see him fight. Now, it's great that they've agreed to fight Usyk. But the point is, many people will look at that and say the WBC should have been acting earlier and call him for a mandatory. So maybe it goes beyond just Deontay Wilder. We need pressure on the governing bodies, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a tough question, Danny, because Chris made a great point, right? Because sometimes if you have too many of these broadcasters, right, you dilute the market, and it's harder for these guys to make fights because these fighters are tied to these exclusivity deals through their promoters, right? So is this a good or bad thing? Because I don't know. I just think that if a lot of these fighters branch out and they kind of go to, some of them go to Top Rank, some of them go to the Zone, I do think you'll see more fights. I think you'll see guys fight each other. This could have been a wake-up call, in other words. Like, you just can't sit on the shelf, because if you sit on the shelf, there's going to be consequences to that. What are your thoughts? Is this good or bad?
No, I think it is good, because I know a lot of boxing fans have been, comparing boxing to the UFC, and they say the reason why a lot of fights in the UFC get made because it's all under one banner. Yeah. So the more fighters that are under a certain banner, is the more chance you're going to see fighters fight certain fighters. Like, as Chris Andre said, we'd like to see some of the American guys fighting more of, international type fighters, because I notice a lot of American guys, they only want to fight either Americans or Mexicans. They don't particularly fancy fighting Eastern Europeans, Australians, even certain Brits. So it'd be good. And even if they do American fights, that would be able to stay up and actually know we've got a channel to watch it on, rather than, relying on other sources, illegal sources and stuff like that. So I think it is a good thing that certain fighters would be coming over. Like, I think if PBC was to go to the Zone, there would be more pressure. But then what I think is, would there be enough dates? Because if you've got the Matchroom dates, where Matchroom has a lot of dates himself, what's his name? Golden Boy, he doesn't have that many dates, but he fills in the gaps here and there. With all those PBC fighters who are normally shelved, if they was to start getting active, would it be enough dates for them to fill? Because the Matchroom cards and the Golden Boy cards, they're quite stacked in itself. It's not like they're little short cards.
But here's the thing, Danny, because it's an app, and it's not like you have to, when you have like Showtime, which is a traditional cable network, right? You have to pay for rights fees. I think with the app, it's easier, because you have, like, Eddie does a lot of UK shows, right? And then there's American shows. So
you can do 2 boxing matches at the same time on an app, and let the
that's
customer choose. Let the customer choose.
Exactly. And then
it's not
another
an
thing,
app no more. It's not an app over here no more.
The Zone's not an app?
No, the Zone comes, it's still an app, but it's also available as part of a Sky Sports package.
Yeah.
It has a channel that you can go to it. However, if you don't want Sky, you can use it as an app.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Also, when you've got that, Danny makes a good point about you're going to have, stacked rosters, limited dates, but that might just mean that we end up getting more stacked undercards. And so you get a better product for your buck. Correct. Because they're going to have to try and start forcing them into. So, in a way, and listen, Danny makes a great point. I'm not trying to run down what Danny's saying, but as a fan, from a fan's perspective, from a selfish perspective, in some way, I don't care whether there's a lot of fighters that they got to try and shovel into to limited amount of dates. Give us a better product.
It's a good problem to have, right? That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, quality over quantity.
Yeah.
No, and I'll tell you know what, I'll make you right there, Chris, because then, yes, as you said, we'd have a better stacked undercard, and the current undercard guys we do have, which we know are like, they ain't really entertaining. They would just go to a small hall circuit, where they belong, a lot of them, to be fair. And they've got to work their way up. A lot of them, they starting off on these big, massive cards when they should be down at York Hall or, somewhere else, when they're getting, third to, like, just under chief support. And he's guys like Hopey Price. I'm not saying he's a good little prospect. And
but you're right. Yeah, you're right. You Hope. Yeah, like Hope. Come on, B. Hopey belong in the copper box, bro.
Yeah, these guys are. They're small hall guys who should be working their way up. Southern area titles should be, they shouldn't be on primetime pay-per-view shows or big time DAZN cards. And also, what they should start doing more is making some Friday cards like Frank Warren does on DAZN, and some Sunday cards, because we all want to. Everyone just watches football on a Sunday over here. Why don't we get some boxing on Sundays more?
I think you'll see that. I think you'll see that. Go
Yeah, we
ahead.
need to bring back the structure, at least that we used to have in the U.S.
Yeah, what's this rule that fights have to only be on Saturdays too? We can switch that.
You can do them on Thursday. You can do them on Thursday.
We used to have a process when a guy was first starting out to be like on the little Mexican channels, like Azteca or something, and then you'll see him on ESPN Friday Night Fights, and then he'll be on Showbox, and then he'll be on HBO Boxing After Dark, and then they'll make it to Championship Boxing, and then maybe they become pay-per-view stars. There was a process that you went through, right?
Yeah, it's fucking WWF. Remember, they used to start off on Live Wire and Heat and Superstars, and then they got to work their way up to start off on Monday Night Raw.
But that's the way it was. Like there was a process on how you build a fighter up and an appropriate place to put those fighters.
And
now,
where
these cards are so random now. Like they're just random. Like
we would normally see a lot of American guys start off over here. If you remember Chris Andre, we used to have this thing on Channel 4 called KOTV, because that's where I actually first saw David Diamante doing his Master of Ceremony, when he used to have the long dreads down to his feet, and he was doing like these little small hall ballrooms or whatever. So that's where I first used to actually see him, and it used to be KOTV, these little small hall American shows, and he used to give us highlights from Channel 4, and then you'd sometimes see these guys like pop up on a proper main broadcaster a few years down the line. But yeah, so we need that over in the UK more.
I once interviewed Steve Kim on my channel, and we were talking about this, and one of the things he made as a point, which was a very, very good point, he said that one of the things that is a disadvantage in the United States when it comes to this sort of thing is that when you have a prospect in the US, because they want to funnel them all onto big shows, you'll often get a guy, say, from, I don't know, Ohio, and they want to put him on in Las Vegas, or from New York, and he has to go to Las Vegas. And as a result, when he's a prospect, he's yet to build up a local fan base. So what happens is, because they're not following the fighter, you're not building up the status of the asset, so to speak, which is something that we have a lot more of in the UK. So when you often hear a lot of American fans, they say the Brits really get behind their fighters. It could just be due to exposure. We know our guys in the US, a lot of local, it's such a big country, a lot of local fighters don't necessarily get the exposure before they're thrust onto that big stage. But just to play, because as I always say, I like to play the defense and prosecution and argue against myself. So I agree with you guys, just to give a counter argument. Is it also possible, though, that if they start bringing in Thursday nights, Friday nights, Sunday nights, that you end up saturating the market? Certain prospects that you would end up putting on pay-per-view shows on the undercard, which will attract eyes that will then make them into the future stars, they'll get a little bit, pushed to the side. They won't get spotted, because if there's so much boxing on in a week, you gave the example there, Danny, of football. On a Sunday night, the fact of the matter is, football, soccer, for our American friends out there, is the number one sport in the UK and indeed globally. They're not going to get the same exposure if you're comparing boxing to football. If they're on at the same time in the UK, boxing's going to get annihilated in that battle. So is it a case of not being able to saturate? Is that why they don't want to do it?
Well, look, guys, I just want to remind you that you're talking about the PBC stable, right? In case you're not aware, because you're in the UK. Most of the top U.S. amateurs, the blue chip prospects, they're not with the PBC anyway. So that's not a problem that they have, to be complete. Most of our young guys that are good young guys are strong young guys. Golden Boy got a few not too long ago. They got a couple of new young guys, new young faces. And the rest of them, the really good ones that look like they're going to be something, they all go to top rank. The PBC doesn't. One thing that is kind of worrying for them that I see is, you don't have that Keyshawn and Kelvin Davis. You don't have that Tiger Johnson. You don't got those young guys that are going to carry the banner into the next generation. The PBC doesn't actually have that. Think about this. Frank Martin is 28, and he's a prospect at 28. That's what 28. They have. So when you think about what they have, it's that what you need to do, honest to God, and it's going to sound like a broken record, the matchmaking needs to be more ambitious. You need to make Charlo versus Adames yesterday, bro. You need to start shelling out the best content that you can quickly, because the reason you find yourself in this predicament is you dragged your feet to make the relevant fights to the point where the numbers dipped, people didn't care anymore, people stopped watching. After 37 years, Showtime is out of boxing. Why? It was because of what you were doing, dog. There's no way it works out to where you're not culpable. No way.
Yeah, I mean, if something's working, you don't get rid of it. If
exactly. If they were making money at Showtime off of boxing, they wouldn't have gotten rid of it. They got and Beeb, you know, I did videos about this to no end. They said it in plain English. Anything that accounts for less than 10% of the overall viewership is getting the axe. If you do the numbers like I did, boxing on Showtime accounts for less than 0%. Less than zero. It's not even zero. It's less than zero. So clearly you guys are doing something wrong.
Isn't that a problem in the sport as a whole, though? Because the Zone have been reporting big losses as well.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with that, Chris, because I used to get on Ring about this all the time, but he made a good point, and I've actually kind of backtracked on it. And I've complained about this in the same breath. I think if you've watched the show Sunday, when the advantage you have of being a sports app is, unfortunately, not in the UK. This is not in the UK, but in America, boxing's kind of like filler content for sports networks, right? So when it's a sports network, you know, it doesn't it fits in anyway. So we're not looking for boxing to carry the platform because ESPN has so many different sports, right? The Zone has so many different sports in so many different markets. So unfortunately, in my opinion, it seems as though in the United States, we're subsidizing these other markets because we're paying $2.25. Everyone else is paying you guys are paying pretty much half of what we pay. But when you look at what some of these other countries are getting, they're getting NFL, NBA, like they're making up for their losses in boxing over here in the United States, if at all, with their broad market across the globe with all these other countries that they're reaching out to. And that's the one advantage you have when you're on these digital platforms is you're global, right?
And when we talk about the Zone's losses, those losses were calculated losses because I recently came across an article that states globally they have 61 million subscribers.
That's what I'm saying.
Globally.
So doesn't matter. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter what they're doing over here, but it's like when I was in retail, I was in prepared foods. The margin we got on prepared foods was substantially less than what we got on groceries. But obviously, we're not going to get rid of prepared foods because these people that are coming in for groceries, right? Or even the people coming in for prepared foods, they're going to buy the groceries. So it's like, okay, maybe you're a football fan, but maybe one day you stumble across the box, and so there is potential for growth.
I'm going to tell you really quick, Joe. I just want to say this really quick. The reason we're subsidizing and the reason we're paying a lot as boxing fans for our boxing content, like I said, a lot of it is filler. However, we're paying a lot. It's kind of like the same effect. Like whenever there's a hurricane somewhere, and like there's scarcity in water. Right, so what do the supermarkets do? All of a sudden, that $4.99 packet of water, all of a sudden, they're selling it for $30, right? Because they know, like, well, you fuckers want water, you're gonna have to pay for it. You don't have another option, and they know that. Like, they know there's not a lot. Like, boxing is not a popular sport in America, and people need to realize that.
It's a niche sport.
Right?
Yeah.
The few, it's a niche sport. The few hardcores that there are, they're saying to themselves, well, we all you got, so you're going to have to pay $25 a month. But if you don't like it, then I guess you don't watch boxing. You're going to have to pay $85 for this pay-per-view. You don't like it.
To that, I'll say this, though. What Rick Glacier suggested is the truth. The market itself needs to be reset. The reason things are the way they are is because the fighters and the managers want more money than they're actually worth, and that's just reality. It is just reality.
But that's the nature of what, I apologize. I'll be really brief. That managers and fighters are supposed to be pushing to get as much as possible. The problem is that when you have someone like Al Heyman, who is supposed to be like he's like the guy that's contracted to give us fights through Showtime, right? And it looks like his concern was to line up the pockets of his fighters because he's the advisor and he gets a percentage out of every single one of those fighters. Like, you know what I mean? That's what it is. He didn't care about giving us great fights.
When you're a manager, you have a different mentality than you do as a promoter. Your promoter, your job is to put on the best show. as a manager advisor, you're there to get your fighter the best deal. Go ahead, Chris. I know you want to say something.
No, I was going to say I totally agree with that, and I was actually going to say that I actually feel that boxing in some ways is contributing to this demise. You know, in the past, you would get a lot of fights that would go on free-to-air TV. Now, what does that do? By being on free-to-air TV instead of demanding pay-per-view, is that you're exposing your asset to more people. By exposing your asset to more people, when you then demand pay-per-view, more people are going to buy a pay-per-view. You can bring the price point down, and then you're still making as much money or more money because you've now developed a wider audience. The fact of the matter is, you're getting a lot of these networks who, in my opinion, are very short-sighted in the way that they've operated. Maybe it is because in the United States, as you're saying, it's a filler sport, but they're not looking necessarily to build up each asset one by one and turn each one into stars. They seem to have a handful of stars, Canelo Alvarez, Gervonta Davis, and they want to push them and try and milk them for everything they can financially. That leads to Gervonta, for instance, not being put in fights that we all want to see him in because they're risk averse. They're afraid. You know, you got a bag there. You don't want to drop it in a river and lose that money. And so you end up being in a situation whereby it's a vicious cycle where it's actually the method that the networks are operating in is actually hurting their own assets and their own ability to earn money long term.
Well, that's why consolidation of promotional outfits on select platforms. This is why, as I know they're not going to do it, that they do business backwards, but that is why consolidation of promotional outfits on select platforms that already cater to that audience would be what's best, because boxing needs to be where the sports are. It doesn't need to be where the movies are, right? It doesn't need to be on Showtime where the majority of people that are there for drama and movies. They're not actually there for sports. Ideally, you would get PBC to bolster the catalog of an ESPN or a DAZN. But unfortunately, I know he's not going to do it. I would sooner expect him to go to Peacock before, and even that's a long shot because, well, you burnt that bridge with NBC, remember? So, but I would sooner expect him to go there than DAZN because it's like, dog, this dude never do shit the right way. He never does.
I'll tell you, because if you go back to the days when he used to promote concerts and he had like a falling out with, I think Jay-Z or Beyonce or something like that, and then he never wanted to work with them again. It was ridiculous, even though they were obviously big draws, right, Beyonce? But he has like such a petty mentality because Eddie Hearn, because he has that vitriol towards Eddie Hearn, and because you heard Leonard Ellerbe make fun of DAZN. Oh, we're never going to fight on an app. Meanwhile, Mayweather was on DAZN in one of his exhibitions. But,
and the foreign broadcaster for some of their fights, unbeknownst to most, was DAZN.
Yeah, but because he's so petty and holds a grudge so bad, he probably won't go down DAZN just because of principle. Because he said,
I mean, they spend so much time trashing it, bro. Like,
it sounds ridiculous because, like, as you said, they spent so much time trashing it. They spent so much time making fun of Eddie Hearn. Say, oh, you're on an app that nobody watches. Meanwhile, we're on this big, this big network here. And then if he goes to that app, it's gonna be like an embarrassment to him. In his eyes,
it'll look like defeat. It'll look like defeat.
Yeah, it'll look like defeat. Like Eddie was right all along.
He's a music guy. And he thinks like a music guy. Yeah. He doesn't operate like a boxing guy. If you're a boxing guy, I hate you today, I'll work with you tomorrow.
That's how Bob is. That's why Top Rank is so successful, because he'll do a deal with the devil.
He'll shit on Eddie all fucking day, but if there's a fight to be made, what's going on? He'll call a guy, he'll say some shit, he'll do something. Al is like a little kid.
Allegedly, Don King put a hit on him, and he still would do shows with him.
I'm saying, like, as much as there's a thing in the UK between Eddie Hearn and Queensberry, the fact of the matter is they still did Felix Cash versus Denzel Bentley. They still did Zach Parker versus John Ryder. This is the way it's supposed to be. Fights need to get made.
They don't work with each other nearly as much as they should, though.
That's true.
No, not as much as they should, but PBC.
Nobody's as bad as PBC. Nobody's as bad as PBC.
Doesn't work with Matchroom at all. Like at all, fam.
I agree with that. But let's remember when Ben Shalom first went and took over at Boxer, he tried to make it known we're not involved in any beefs. We want to work with all of the promoters. And then that soon, you started to see first Frank Warren take a few digs at them. Then you started to see Eddie Hearn do the same. Then Ben Shalom started to show a different side of himself. And they all started falling out again. The point is, boxing is such a dirty sport. Whilst the PBC might very well be the worst of it, Perhaps I can't pretend to know the ins and outs of what's going on behind the scenes. From what we don't see, I can't know that. But whilst the PBC seems to be the worst, I do think that there are a lot of boxing promoters and networks, all of them, not just one, that are harming the sport as a whole. Together, that one thing that I will say with the PBC is worse than any other promotional company. Again, from what I can see from the outside looking in, but again, it's not exclusive to them. You have a lot of fighters that are on a lot of money for minimum. They get minimum guarantees for a fight. And what that does is it reduces the activity of certain fighters. Because if you're a fighter that wants to take a big risk, you're going to demand a lot of money. If you then demand that same amount of money or a similar amount to fight somebody that's not going to generate that same level of interest, your promoter, your network, they're just not going to put you on. So you end up having a situation whereby somebody could have a favorite fighter and he ends up seeing him once, maybe twice a year if he's lucky. In what other sport do we see that sort of pattern? Could you imagine seeing your favorite basketball team play twice a year, your favorite NFL team play twice a year? They're not using their assets in the best way. And maybe because the PBC initially tried to, from what we understand, overpay fighters, maybe that started that process, which might have been damaging.
Chris, I'll say this. It's not just that. And it kind of needs to be said that if you want the honest to God truth, why they're so careful with what they have, it is because it is an inferior product. Honest to God, like if you would have let Shakur Stevenson, if Frank Martin would have fought Shakur Stevenson, what do you think would have happened? What do you think would have? Now, this is to the point that you made that, some fighters get huge guarantees per fight. Yeah, not that guy. That guy don't make 7 figures a fight. He don't. He's not a 7-figure fighter. He's not. And you walked away from 7 figures. The only way that I can wrap my mind around that is you knew you was going to get your ass beat. Just like Peter Quillen knew. Remember years ago, Peter Quillen, they asked him about Golovkin. Yeah, I need $6 million. $6 million? Are you out of your fucking mind, bro?
Ring, that goes back to the mentality of Al Heyman being the advisor manager instead of the promoter, right? Hey, this fight will be here down the road. Don't you worry about that.
Yep.
Look, I'll get you three fights.
I hate to rehash. Look, I hate to rehash something, but I got to do it. The reality is the Zone, Matchroom, or whatever offered Cato Plant $10 million to go to the app to fight Canelo. And they played some serious hardball. Now, I don't blame them for doing it or nothing like that, but it tells you their mentality over there. Sure. And that was and for some reason, boxing fans only gave a pass to PBC fighters for that. Yeah. Like they would totally rationalize it. No. He should go over to Showtime. It's a bigger platform. It's bigger. It's better. Canelo he's a free agent. He should go over there. Right now, he did end up going over there, but then they played some serious hardball. Canelo lost a date in Mexican Independence Day. Okay, because he really wanted that belt or whatever, right? But if they played like that with Canelo, they were never going to work with anybody. And it tells you about the ego of this guy. It tells you a lot about Al Heyman and his mentality. And it's just the way he is.
I personally think they've damaged American boxing in a way. See, the Brits, they got a good thing going over there. You got some good guys, some good shit going on over there that is still interesting. Like you got domestic level fights that are still great fights, like Fabio Wardley versus David Adelaide. Oh, I like that shit. I like that shit.
And that's cross promotion. That's cross promotion.
Right, you got Hamza Shiraz. I think they want to put Hamza Shiraz in there with Denzel Bentley. I think it is.
Yeah.
It's fights like these that they're not huge fights, but they're still great fights that would do great business. And they're not even huge fights. Never mind the big ones. There are smaller ones, domestic level ones that are still great fights. Whereas here, dog, you can't get 2 unbeaten guys in the ring over here. No. Frank Martin wouldn't park his car next to Shakur, bro. He got up out of there.
I agree 100%. But this is my point, right? It might be worse with the PBC. For sure. I'm not shilling for the PBC. Trust me when I say that. But if you look, for instance, at Richard Torres and Jared Anderson, you're talking about 2 guys, cross paths in the amateurs, undefeated, both prospects. Neither one of them's willing to step up just yet to take a world title shot. That fight would make sense. Frank Sanchez, Makhmudov, that fight makes sense. I understand that you've got the PBC that might
Frank isn't with Top Rank, bro.
Say that again.
Frank is with PBC.
Yeah, FAI Jack was with Top Rank.
Yeah.
Let me let Dave let me let Dave jump in real quick. Dave, we're talking about the Showtime leaving boxing. Is this good or bad? You think that this kind of makes things a little better because the market's less saturated? What do you think happens to these PBC guys?
Oh man, I'm just trying to keep up with this breaking news left and right. To be honest, I would be more pleased if PBC worked out a deal with DAZN and everybody was under, as many promotional companies were under one banner to get these big fights made finally. So these guys can engage with each other. We've seen too much stuff fall apart. We saw that Jaime Munguia, Jermell Charlo fight fall apart because PBC didn't want to work with DAZN, but under one umbrella, at least we will get some semblance of something going on. And maybe Oscar De La Hoya will get his big wish that he's dreaming about, this reimagining of promoters working together finally and making these big fights happen, because I feel like, boxing is on its deathbed here in America while it's growing in popularity in other places like Australia and doing quite well in Europe and the UK. So something's got to happen here in the US.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Boxer deal a little bit now, because they signed a media rights deal with NBC Sports / Peacock. And an interesting thing with Peacock is I have that in my actual cable package. Like I have Peacock, I have Netflix and Tubi. So Comcast bundles some of these apps into your cable package. I don't know if you have that too, Dave. Some of these apps?
Actually, I did have Peacock, the Peacock in California. I had that free bundled.
Yeah, I have that. It's not my bundle. So, I mean, to be selfish, I mean, if PBC were to go to Peacock, I wouldn't have to pay for it. But who knows? But what do you think of this deal, D-Style? You think this is just the beginning? Do you think there's more to come here? Because this is kind of like, it's a media rights deal, so it's not like Peacock and NBC Sports are going to have their own broadcasting. They're just going to basically kind of simulcast it from the UK.
Like you said earlier, look, I'll be very quick. Like you said earlier, boxing is filler content. I'm not trying to say it in a demeaning way, but it's most content is filler content nowadays, right? Unless you're something mega. Yeah. So that's why there's always going to be some form of boxing, right? I'm saying television, but on apps, on whatever you want to call it, right? On media. So I think I don't have an issue with this at all, because at the end of the day, a lot of these boxer cards, I wouldn't get to watch them, or I have to order them on Fight TV or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's more boxing for me, so I'm not complaining as far as that goes. And they have a lot of the foreign fights for us, so that's always good for me at the end of the day. You know what I mean? What that means for in the UK, I have no idea. Like, you know what I mean? But as far as for here, I'm all for it.
Yeah. It's funny, Danny, because we complain a lot here in the United States because you have to pay a lot for boxing. But I got to say, one good thing with these apps is like ESPN Plus, we get fights from Japan, we get fights from Sky, we get fights from the UK. Now with this situation with Peacock, we're going to be getting fights. We were going to get that Joshua Buatsi Dan Aziz fight on Peacock, right? So that would have been free for me, right? So this is good for us. But outside of DAZN, how do you guys watch non-pay-per-view fights over there in the UK? Is DAZN your only avenue for that?
No. Sky Sports, that's non-pay-per-view. So they normally put boxer shows on Sky Sports, which is just part of.
But I'm talking about American-based fights. Like if you
they get the Top Rank shows on Sky.
Do they get them free? The Top Rank shows?
Yeah. That's their official UK broadcast partner for Top Rank is Sky.
So they get the
Sports.
American fights too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we get certain ones on TNT Sports as well, because Frank Warren has a good deal with Bob Arum, so we get a lot of the top shows on TNT Sports, which was BT Sports before. So that's how we normally. And funny enough, you were talking about you get Netflix and Peacock, because we get Netflix in our Sky package if you want to add it for an extra, I think it's like an extra £5 a month. So yeah, so that's something.
This is in my bundle. I just pay one flat fee. Like I pay like $149 a month, and I got HBO, Showtime, and I got my internet and all this shit mixed in. I got
Bear in mind though, Joe, your cards are on that. We don't finish watching them till we start at 2 a.m.
Oh, I know that sucks for you. That does suck.
So with that in mind,
we get a better deal because we're watching your cards that are going on like at 11 o'clock at night. We're getting them at 6.
Right. So imagine it was on pay-per-view. Nobody would be in the UK awake to watch it. So they can't really go down that route with But they do put a couple of. They have put a couple of big American fights on pay-per-view. Canelo Golovkin 3 was on pay-per-view, wasn't it, Danny? What else was there? Was something else.
Spence
Crawford was on pay-per-view. So yeah, they will put the big American fights on pay-per-view. They've started to do that. But generally speaking, because boxing, although it's bigger here than it is in the United States, if you're talking about ratio to population, it's still a cult sport here as well. You're not going to get, millions of people waking up at 5 a.m. to watch a fight.
No. Yeah, but I think it's a good thing with the app stuff. But we've heard rumors about Boxer as well now that Sky might be not looking to renew their deal because they're not really drawing the numbers and the crowds and stuff like that. So Boxer, they seem to be in a bit of trouble themselves.
Yeah. So Dave, what do you think of this Boxer / NBC Sports / Peacock deal here? You'll be able to watch some fights over from the UK. Excited about that?
Yeah, any free content is great. Look how, how much I'm enjoying Pro Box TV on YouTube on Wednesdays, the interaction with the chat. Anything free is good for me. I really do appreciate it. It's getting too expensive to be a boxing fan.
Yeah.
It's weird, to be honest with you, that it's been sustainable in the United States. I don't know how you guys do it. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I look at some of I think to myself sometimes, wow, this pay-per-view this week, in 2 weeks they got another one, and the cost astronomical. I don't know how you're able to follow.
No, Chris, it's not sustainable. That's why Showtime left.
Before the year is out,
sustainable.
Before the year is out, I'm going to spend over $1,000 on boxing this year, more than my car insurance.
It's not sustainable.
The funny part when these pay-per-views don't sell, like people like blame the hardcore boxing fan like it's our fault because they don't sell. We're the only ones buying it. We're the only ones watching it.
If you look at how Bob does it, if you look at how Bob does it, and I think Bob Arum and Top Rank do a fantastic job annually because they put on the least pay-per-views in America. They don't put on very many pay-per-views here, and that is how it should be. That pay-per-view should just be reserved for the biggest of the biggest fights, and the rest of the content should be as part of the regular schedule to get those eyes and raise that marquee value and get the fighter known. Whereas, obviously at Showtime, it was a pay-per-view every other fucking month, bro. It was a pay-per-view every other month. It's not sustainable.
Did you have anything else to add, Dave, or are you all set?
I could have swore I heard today ESPN Plus is doing absolutely awful for ESPN and losing millions.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Which is not a good sign. Here we are. Oh, Bob's doing great and whatnot. But as far as I heard today in some stock reports, ESPN Plus is tanking big time.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's Bob, though. I mean, that's
right.
Specifically, that's not all they show. That's not all they show. They got a lot of stuff on there that nobody watches, unfortunately. Yeah. I'm only there for the boxing.
And it's so hard to find. You realize how hard it is on that app just to find the boxing portion.
I'll try to be very brief here, but basically, look, when I worked at Dish, they would kind of companies like Disney or Viacom, they would force companies like this, DirecTV, Comcast, to buy channels that nobody wanted, but you had to buy those channels if you wanted ESPN, if you wanted Spike TV, if you wanted USA Network, you're going to have to buy these other channels that nobody watches, but we're going to add that to what you have to pay us, right? Now that they're going standalone, a lot of that, it's like weird. It's kind of firing back on them because they're transitioning it to standalone, and they're realizing a lot of that filler, like nobody watches it, and it's a waste of money. But now that they don't have the in between guy like Dish, DirecTV, like that anymore to pay for it for them and subsidize it for them, right? So that's why now that a lot of it is crashing. They're getting rid of a lot of it. It's really the after effects of all that is what's going on.
Yeah, the cycle of consolidation.
Did you have anything else to add, Ring, before I go to Chris on this one?
Oh, no, I would just say that, unfortunately, Ben, if you've been paying attention, I remember the Lawrence Okoli versus David Light fight. People were getting up and leaving.
That was bad.
It was bad, and the Buatsi fight, I think he had one already under Boxer, and it was like the same thing. It was like, oh my God, like this is abysmal. And it's like, I don't see Adam Smith anymore. So I just get the sense that ever since Adam Smith has been gone, it's like they don't have a direction. that when he was there, you had him to steer the ship. Now that he's not there, it's like Ben Shalom is all over the place. You pulled Lawrence Okoli out of the purse bid with Jai Opataya to do what, bro? So what's he doing now? Fucking nothing. Gulamarian has a mandatory with Dortico, so he can't be fighting him. Motherfucking Chris Billum Smith is fighting Matthias Masternak, so Richard ain't fighting him. It's like, you don't have a direction. You got a stable of fighters. You don't know what the fuck to do with them. So I could see Sky being like, yeah, man, we might not renew with y'all because y'all bugging out.
Yeah.
And they pulled out Fraser Clark from the first bid to fight Fabio Wardley. And
to do what? Like, all right, if you're gonna pull them out, but have them do something. You know what I mean? Like, you put them guys out of that shit and they ain't doing nothing, man. Like,
I think the issue with Sky is that because they were trying to rebuild Sky, say Boxer, they haven't got a very strong stable. So with them, the pulling out of purse bids is literally a case of we could get wiped out here. We end up losing a few fights here or there. We're in trouble. You saw Chris Billum Smith beat Lawrence Okoli, which many people were surprised by. Now, for Sky, as a network, I actually think they might be happy about that because although they invested to bring Lawrence Okoli in, one of the problems with Okoli, although he's a good fighter, he's not very entertaining. Yeah. And he's there are a lot of fans here in the UK which criticize him an awful lot for excessive clinching and stuff like that. And I've tried to defend Lawrence Okoli in the past, but in terms of a spectacle to watch his fights, he's not somebody who's going to become a pay-per-view star, even if he's a very good fighter. So with them, I think they look at situations like Fraser Clark. They see that he's got serious fitness issues. They think, imagine he goes over and he fights Wardley and he ends up getting cleaned out. They're concerned about a lot of their fighters. Josh Taylor, who they signed, obviously just lost to Teofimo Lopez. So they're looking at their assets, I think, and they're in a state of panic at the moment. But I think Sky's too big of a network and doesn't necessarily rely on boxing to completely pull out. I just think they're going to end up rebuilding. They might, whether they stay with Boxer or not, that's another story. But Sky as a network, I have a feeling will stay in boxing. With regards to the NBC, let me just ask you guys something out there in the US. Is it not a terrestrial channel? Is it part of it? Do you have to have a cable?
NBC is, yeah. NBC by itself is Channel 4. That's a terrestrial channel. Peacock is their streaming platform.
Yeah, Peacock is the streaming app. So
it's ESPN. It's what ESPN Plus is to ESPN. Yeah. Peacock is that to NBC.
So you would end up having the same sort of cross-network issues, cross-promotional issues. It's not like they'd be on the same... It's not like it'd be easy to make the fights then. If PBC do go there instead of DAZN, for instance, you're still going to have a lot of the same issues recycled.
It's the exact same situation.
That's why it's better for the DAZN. Like for me to be from a monetary standpoint, it's probably cheaper. But who even knows? Because they'll probably do their pay-per-views like Ringside on Amazon, and they'll probably do some of their lower level shows.
Because they've always had fragmented content. When they had the Fox deal, they had the Showtime deal, and then even in between there, they were on other networks like FS1 and Spike and Bounce, and they're fragmented. And it's just not good for the health of the market, to be honest. That's why I'm like, I don't know what they're gonna do, but whatever it is, it's probably stupid.
So it's still an app.
Let's transition to since we're on PBC. There's a bunch of crazy rumors here of this December 9th card. I'm hearing that they're going to do Floyd Mayweather versus Mikey Garcia, possibly in an exhibition fight. Then on the undercard, you got Eimantas Stanionis versus Keith Thurman, Erislandy Lara versus Danny Garcia in a WBA middleweight title fight. First of all, D-Style, is this Mayweather thing even a reality? And I'm surprised to hear that Keith Thurman may fight Eimantas Stanionis, man. We already knew Danny Garcia was going to fight Erislandy Lara.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of this? These rumors?
So I do think it's possible. I mean, why not do one more heist? On your way out. Why not? It's at this point.
You think Floyd's going to be part of it?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Yes, one more heist. Why not? We've been hustling for a year. Let's hustle one more time on the way out. What I mean? Why not? It's what do they got to lose at this point? They got nothing to lose at this point. Yeah. And for Floyd, I mean, is it that crazy to think he'll be on the Showtime pay-per-view? He was on a UK pay-per-view in front of no audience, on the zone. Of course he'll be on Showtime. It's definitely possible. And then against a fat
Whoa,
Mikey Garcia.
Easy with the fat shaming.
It is what it is. Like it's another heist. You know what I mean? They've been hustling these dudes forever, and of course, Mendoza's going to stand aside and let it happen.
Yeah,
you know, it is what it is because we like it is what it is. I love Keith Thurman against Stanionis. I just wish that shit was just like, you want to go out, just make it regular Showtime. Put them on regular Showtime. One more banger. Keith one time Thurman versus Stanionis. I would have loved that. You know, but no, they're going to put on the pay-per-view. It is what it is. And then Danny Garcia, you know what I mean? In a fight nobody wants to see against Erislandy Lara, probably at a catch weight, whatever. I mean, talk about it's ironic it's on pay-per-view because that's the problem.
No, because that's probably the only way to pay them all, bro.
That's what I mean. That is this card, right? It's the microcosm of the macro problem, right? That's what it is. Inflated purses galore, right? That's what it is. So hey, let's just hustle them one more time, one more heist. Let's get our inflated purses and let's go out with a bang. We'll never see Keith Thurman ever again. We'll never see Danny Garcia ever again because ain't nobody going to be paying them what the fuck they're going to be making on that card ever again. Absolutely. I can guarantee you that. So they're going to do it one more time. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But in a perfect world, that's a regular Showtime Championship boxing. Keith Thurman, Stanionis. I love the fight. I just want to put that out there. But we'll see what happens. But yes, I do think it's very possible that Floyd Mayweather Jr. will be on the main event of the last Showtime fight card ever. And you don't think he wants that? Like, you know what I mean? You don't think he just wants to be able to say, I closed out Showtime? Like, it ended with me? Like what better way to go out than with Floyd Mayweather Jr. against a hell of a fighter in Mikey Garcia?
What do you make of this, Chris? Have you heard the rumors about this?
I have. Listen, I totally agree with what D-Style said in every way. I mean, the undercard is somewhat concerning, shall we say. I mean, what does it even mean, an exhibition? You're going to get two fighters who are pros. Are they just going to hold back? Or is it going to be a proper fight? I mean, what are we talking about here? Is it going to be like the Hatton Barrera thing? In which case, it's going to be a bit like a bit of a circus. Is Mikey Garcia going to be in shape? Or as you're saying, is he going to come in fat? Who knows? The main event I do love. I can envisage. I mean, you look at someone like Stanionis, he's got a lovely jab that he can lead with or counter with. He's a guy who likes to put his weight on that front foot and rip the body. We know that Keith Thurman's a little bit susceptible to the body, but Keith is a lovely mover. He's got great feet. And when he's got that weight shifted onto that front foot, Stanionis, is he going to be able to turn with him? So far, we've been seeing guys that have liked to bring it to Stanionis. If he has to chase and hunt down, that could be interesting early. Is Keith Thurman going to be able to take the punishment late on? There's enough there to make me really want to see that fight. But that aside, you look at Lara and Danny Garcia, all I'll say about that fight is I'm so happy now that we've got a unified champion in Janibek, because hopefully now it puts a target on his back. When you got 4 middleweights and each one of them's got a title, what can often happen is that each guy says, I'm the man, and nobody else can contest it. Whereas now that you've quite clearly got a guy who's top of the mountaintop, he's the king at the moment, the other guys, if they want to be taken seriously, they have to challenge him. And so guys like Erislandy Lara have to start making moves. Adamez needs to actually start running his mouth a little bit more about Jermell Charlo. He needs to say, listen, you guys need to strip him. There needs to start being some movement in that division. And now that we've got that unified champ, hopefully we get to see some proper fights, because I don't think any hardcore boxing fan is looking at Lara versus Danny Garcia and thinking, oh my God, I can't wait for that. I'm canceling my plans. You know, I've got to be home for that. It's just, come on.
Yeah. Ring, are you gonna give Showtime your money one last time if this happens?
Nah, bro, I'm gonna be watching Haney versus Prograis, bro. That's what I'm buying. Haney versus Prograis. Oh, that's the same day. Like, I'm sorry, but Showtime has been horrible for the fans. So I don't have no problem buying pay-per-views, bro. I bought all sorts of pay-per-views, big ones and small ones. I'm gonna be watching Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis that night. That's a great fight. Devin is being ambitious again. It's dangerous. You know, it's dangerous for that to be the first guy you fight at 140. I love it. I love the fight. And that's what I'm going to be doing. As far as that shit show on Showtime, yo, that's why y'all leaving boxing now, yo. Because of shit like that. Lara versus Danny Garcia. Are you out of your fucking mind? You know what they could have put on pay-per-view that I would have bought? Boots Ennis, Danny Garcia, and I would love to see that. That would have been great. Or Boots Ennis versus Keith Thurman. That would have been great. This shit, nah, dog. I'm not giving you my money for this bullshit. Come on.
Dave, is this kind of a slap in the face? You're putting this up against another pay-per-view card. You're exiting boxing on a kind of a low note, if you ask me. What are your thoughts on this card?
It's a big slap in the face. First of all, I'm here in Las Vegas, but San Francisco's my hometown, and from what I understand, they already sold 9,000 tickets.
Yeah,
that's really, really exciting for Bay Area sports fans to have the return, to have a champion come back home and already selling well, and for Showtime and PBC to come up with the sham of a pay-per-view. It sounds laughable. It sounds like the farewell tour of has-beens. And yes, I think 100, with the exception of Stanionis. Listen, I'm not even excited about Stanionis, Keith Thurman. I think the Keith Thurman fight, his performance over Barrios is going to age well because Barrios looks so good in his recent performance.
Yeah, look good.
But this isn't the Keith Thurman of 10 years ago. That basically is a gatekeeper fight where, we're really going to find out is Keith Thurman officially a gatekeeper and letting Stanionis into the big spotlight. Stanionis versus Boots. Now that I would have been happy to see. That's on the level of Haney versus Regis Prograis. But to go against the Regis Prograis fight, first of all, like I said, I'm from the Bay Area, so I'm bitter about that. I won't be spending my money on that. I'm going to definitely watch that Haney Prograis fight. And it does seem like, from all accounts, watching what's going on social media, that Mikey Garcia is he's in fat camp. He's basically trying to shed the weight for this potential whatever it is exhibition match. He definitely is in camp training for something. So hopefully they'll get there together and move the date, man. Just move it 1 week ahead or 1 week.
If it were Mayweather versus T.I., T.I. or 50 Cent,
yeah,
they would have got my money.
But they're not a hell of a fighter, though.
Not a hell of a fighter.
He's a hell of a rapper.
Danny, TBE versus Mikey Garcia. You excited?
No, I'm not excited. Come on. But what it is, I think, was Floyd the one who closed out HBO boxing as well?
No, that was Cecilia Breakus and Kaylee
he was
Reese.
gone. Like Floyd was already with Showtime for a couple of years.
Yeah, he was already. Yeah, he had already crossed over.
But when he left HBO, it took a big tank at the end of the day. So in his mind, he's going to be like, I'm the guy who, I shut the door on HBO, I shut the door on Showtime. So for him, it's a nice little ego booster. Stanionis, I expect him to stop Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman. I'm surprised he actually took this fight because he probably could have had tough fights like this, like the Boots Ennis one, for more money. But he didn't want to fight Boots. He made his reasons. I know Danny Garcia didn't want to fight Boots Ennis either because he doesn't want to give up the keys to Philly. There's all those reasons why those fights didn't come off. But yeah, Danny Garcia versus Lara. I thought that someone like Chris Eubank Jr. should have gone after Lara because that guy is just a sitting duck to get taken out. So that way, Eubank Jr. could become a world champion.
Yeah, but Danny, that's the thing. Right? That's the thing. A lot of people, for instance, are turning their nose up at the moment to Janibek. And I understand he's untested. But why aren't the likes of Eubank going and fighting the likes of Lara and Gaultieri? Go and get yourself a world title. Yes. That's what I mean about there are so many fighters that don't want to take risks. And then you have a lot of fans of those fighters who will run down the guys that are actually taking risks. I applaud Gaultieri. He was out of his depth. But he went and beat Esquiva Falcao, who was an Olympic silver medalist, undefeated. He took a risk. And so that one of the things that we're seeing is that we're seeing fighters that should be stepping up in the middleweight division. Guys like Felix Cash. He was looking very good after that win with Denzel Bentley. I don't know.
And very human after that, though, bro. He hasn't looked the same since the Bentley fight, man.
No, but apparently the reason is because he developed some sort of mental health issues and started hitting the bottle. I don't know if that's true. That's what I've been reading online. So you've had him with mental health issues. You've had Jamal Charlo with mental health issues, apparently. So it's starting to leave a void at middleweight. Why aren't other guys stepping up and saying, I'm going to take this opportunity? Do you see what I'm saying? And instead,
Chris knows who he is, bro. Chris Eubank Jr., for better or worse, he knows who he is. And he knows that, look, I'm going to go in there with Yanni Beck, who might beat me, when I can go in there with Connor and make way more money. And I'm not justifying it, but you guys know how this works.
Sure.
Conor Ben versus Chris Eubank Jr. is a huge fight. Whereas Yanni Beck versus Gualtieri or Guacamole That shit flew way under the radar, bro. And that was a unification match.
That's the point.
No, he could.
Him.
I'll say this: Top Rank moved on Gualtieri very, very quickly. It didn't when he won that IBF. It didn't take them long to make that fight with Yanni Beck because they knew Yanni Beck needed it. Like, okay, look, there's a guy with a belt. Let's fucking get him. Not a lot of time.
And that's a guy that's going to need world titles in order to get fights. He's gonna need that. He's gonna
100. Hey, really quick, Danny. I just want to say this. You might be right. Maybe in Floyd's weird mind, like his ego will be boosted because he put an end to HBO and Showtime. But I don't know though. Like, I wouldn't want that legacy. Like I'm the one that killed HBO and Showtime. Like that's a weird. Like I'd rather have like look at what I left behind. Look at what I built. I made it stronger. I left it better. You would think that would be his mindset. But I have heard him say before though that when people say, "What does boxing need to do to get better?" and he'll say things like, "Well, Floyd is boxing, so without me, I don't know." Like he has said shit like that. So it might in his weird mind do it.
Yeah.
But man, I would rather have a legacy of when I left, that shit was strong. You know what I mean? Look at what I left behind. I destroyed it. You know, like I don't know.
Well, people are going to be saying, this card's a joke, but in my homeland of Jamaica, there's an even worse card going on in Razor Rudder.
James Toney. Oh my God, bro!
I love that fight. I'm buying
it. Beady man.
That shit is crazy, bro. Like, y'all don't need to be fighting.
Can he even get in the ring without pulling a hamstring at this point? I mean, like, these are old, bro.
Yeah. Who's gonna sanction that fight? Like, so they're fighting in Jamaica, right? That's where it's going down. Because I don't think James could get a fucking license anywhere in America.
James Toney should never ever be allowed to get a license right now. Oh my God!
Jamaica with Beanie Man doing the halftime show.
Beanie. Oh wow. Sima. Ooh, my shit, man. Let's
jump to the last topic, man. Because I'm gonna be honest. When I first heard this fight, I wasn't too excited about it. But the more I thought about it, I'm saying to myself, I don't know, man. Jorge Linares, he's still got some skills, and Jack Caterall is not a huge puncher. And the guys that really give Linares problems are the guys that can crack and hurt him. I mean, he's got some decent boxing skills. I don't know how much he has left, but I don't know, Chris. Is this a long shot, or could this be a decent fight?
Look, he's lost 3 on the bounce now. Linares, a prime Linares, the Linares that fought Lomachenko, Kevin Mitchell, Anthony Crolla. One of the beautiful things about him was his legs. Wait, pause. I don't mean that like a Kim Basinger legs. I'm talking about
Base ain't on here. Base ain't on here. Base usually is the one that does the pauses and
just clip that part. He had the most beautiful legs.
he had beautiful movement, and he would put together these blistering combinations. But as you alluded to, he was always vulnerable. And when you take the legs away, which was one of the key aspects of his defense, you're talking about a guy that's still going to have fast hands. But he's up against a bigger man who's a good technical boxer who can break your construct, as he showed against Josh Taylor, who's physically stronger than Linares. I just think that at this stage of their careers, it's a pretty straightforward fight, to be honest with you. But in the same way that Colazzo was able to show a few things when he fought Stanionis, little veteran tricks that Stanionis is going to learn from, maybe Jack Caterall could pick up on a few tricks here and there. Linares might have moments here and there. But realistically speaking, I think he's got to be the hot favorite, Jack Caterall.
Oh, yeah.
Am I being overly optimistic here, D-Style? Can Jorge Linares turn back the clock one more time?
I want him to. I'll say that. That'll be something to watch. You know what I mean? Like, it's a country song I like. It says, "I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was." Can he? Maybe. I mean, I could walk outside right now and debris from a plane could fall on my head and I could die. Like that could happen. Right?
It's too dark for. We're gonna take it there.
Like a lot of things happen. You know what I mean? But is it gonna happen? I say save your money if you're thinking about betting on Linares. I saw, shout out to Boxing Beats and Ryan's. He put out a stat like Linares is 4-0 against matchroom fighters. Well, 5th time's a charm, baby. It is what it is. Okay. Linares hasn't been the same in years. He's in a losing streak for a reason. It's gonna be almost a year since he's fought. Catterall's a pretty tough guy. He's gonna make it ugly. He's gonna smother him, and I don't know like how much Linares has left. I don't, but he hasn't been looking good, and his track record of 140 isn't good. It just isn't.
No did to him, bro. He folded his ass up.
Yeah,
one round.
Like he went up there with Kano, and Kano just knocked him the hell out, bro. Like he can't, like, whatever it is. The one thing about Linares, like, I remember when he was young and he looked like he had everything, but like always, that's why you need resistance, because we find out things about you like that we don't know. And one thing we found out really quick was that he had a questionable chin, that he cut easy, and that he was not that durable. That those are three things we found out about Linares. Extremely talented, but those are the three things, you know, like you could beat him by wearing him out, right? And taking him to deep waters like DeMarco did. You could beat him with skill, obviously, like Lomachenko did, and stop him, or you could survive till the end, like Haney did, whatever that was. But still,
Dulaev stopped him, bro.
Definitely stopped him, absolutely. And we've seen him get knocked out. He's the only fighter I know that I've seen get knocked out brutally in the first round. I've seen him get taken to deep waters and beat like that way, beat on cuts. Like there's just so many ways to beat him. But yet he's so talented. That's the thing, right? I got Catterall on this fight. That's the safe bet. I'm pretty confident. And I think it's a wrap for Linares. You call it a day. That's it.
Danny, this the swan song for Linares? I was thinking about betting Catterall with the decision prop because I don't think he's going to knock him out. But what do you think? Is that a good bet?
That might be the obvious thing, but I think someone like Catterall might stop him, because Catterall's looking quite aggressive, and he's getting in there and dropping guys and stopping guys a lot more lately. So I think he'll end up stopping Linares, who, you know, has seen a lot of better days. I know you said that usually it's guys who are big punchers, Joe, that would get rid of him, but you know, as we know, Devin Haney ain't no big puncher, and he managed to pot shot him throughout and get the victory over him. And Linares, yeah, I know they say that a veteran fighter, you know, he's got one last good fight left in him, but I don't think this is the type of guy, someone like Catterall, who's a very good boxer and is an improving boxer, and his jab is just looking, in his last fight, was just looking tremendous. And then his performance against Josh Taylor, which he
on
really
his
won.
backhand too, on his backhand. I think he's gonna knock Linares out, bro.
Yeah, I think he's going to stop him. If you're looking at his last two fights, there's no way. I just can't see someone like Linares being able to live with someone like Jack Caterall at this present moment. And how long's Linares been out? It's been a couple of years now, ain't it?
It's been like over a year.
He hasn't been that active. He's in a losing streak. Not very durable. Gets knocked out a lot at 140 pounds. He cuts easy, right? So I'm just saying, a stoppage is definitely possible.
Also, I don't think he's going to get cut. I think he's going to get stopped. I just don't see. I don't think he's got enough left in him. And Jack Catterall's flying right now, and he deserves a nice world title shot soon. So I see him stopping Jack Caterall. So I advise you, Joe, go for Catterall via stoppage.
And here's the thing, Joe, as well, that you need to think about, right? Jack Caterall feels very hard done by the fact that he wasn't the undisputed champion against Josh Taylor. And a lot of people are not talking about him as a legitimate test for Teofimo Lopez. So what they've probably gone and done is they've looked at a recognizable name in Jorge Linares. They've said, look, it was only 3 fights ago he went the distance with Devin Haney. If we go and blast him out of there, it might get people talking, and it could potentially put him in a position where he can start talking up a fight against Teofimo Lopez or one of the big names. So for me, this is set up to make Catterall look good, if you know what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
And he should, bro. Like, his backhand, not just the jab, the backhand was looking strong in his last fight. That was less than. I think Jack gonna knock his ass out, bro.
But Ring, remember when Linares rocked Devin Haney, man?
That's Devin Haney, bro.
He finished strong.
Listen, man. Listen, Jack Cataract was the first one to expose Josh Taylor. Don't forget that. It was Jack Caterall that put Josh on his ass. All right. And he looked like, he surprised me how sharp he looked in his last fight, because he was coming off a lot of inactivity. So if he looked sharp like that already, and that was earlier this year, that was less than 12 months ago, and Linares, God bless him, he was great at the lower weights. At 140, he's a TV dinner, bro. Like he's a little brownie with the mashed potato on the side. Like he's the little corn shit. Like that dude is food, fam. He's gonna get through one of them backhands. It's gonna be a wrap. It's gonna be a wrap. I got my man Jack Caterall, tuna noodle casserole this weekend.
Dave, any upsets here, man? What's going on?
No upsets, man. Hey, my stepdad is from Caracas, Venezuela. Shout out to Jorge Linares, one of the handful of the finest Venezuelan champions, 3-division weight champion. Of course, that was in the lower weight classes, guys. I think his finest performance of recent memory is what he did to Devin Haney to kind of expose, Devin Haney's chin a little bit. That's his finest performance. But what we saw against Cano, and by the way, if you guys didn't see that Cano knockout, that is one of the best knockouts I've seen this year. And from what I understand, Roberto Diaz saying Cano's going to pick up a big fight over that knockout he just did on Pro Box TV a couple weeks back. Cano's still a very dangerous puncher.
Tough fucking guy, man.
Yeah. And, what he did to Linares at 140, Linares probably should have hung up the gloves right after that fight. But here he is giving it another shot against a very dangerous Jack Caterall, a guy that I think beat Josh Taylor. He should have got the nod. He should have been undisputed king that night, and he didn't. So things are probably going to play out the same way. I think Linares doesn't make it to the end. I think he's gets stopped not by big punches, but maybe by an accumulation of punches and punishment. It's a stoppage.
Okay. Well, that's it, guys. It's the last topic. I want to thank everyone in the chat. Thank the panel, especially you guys from the UK staying up late to be on the show. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem. And I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks a lot, man.
Take care, everyone. God bless.
Appreciate it. Take care, man. Big ups.